in our work, we've observed, my colleagues and I, that there are 6 habits that we see commonly among the businesses that are already successful. So, with that in mind, what I'd like you to think about, if you're embarking or somewhere in the middle of this journey yourselves, what I'd like you to imagine is what you might look like in 2 or 3 years' time when you're successful. These might be the habits that you are demonstrating, of course, in your way. And the first habit that we see is that the businesses that are already successful have a very strong leadership in place. Now this, and you'll see with the other habits as well, is very much around common sense, business common sense. And what's particularly important, of course, is this common sense needs to be applied in this environment, because we are talking about a very challenging business environment and very much often a startup kind of position that we're in. And leadership in a startup or a difficult competitive environment has to be very entrepreneurial. And typically also with being an entrepreneur, people are very sales driven. And commonly they have a clear vision of where they want to get to. So clear vision and goals is critical. They know exactly where they want to get to. The second habit that we see, or second attribute, is that, and this is what you would look like, is you'd have a very clear focus. So together with an entrepreneurial leadership who have a clear vision and goal as to where they want to go as a business, you will also have a clear focus, and that is you'll clearly understand the domain in which you are strong, such as a line of business, a function, or an area of technology, an area of business domain where you are strong. You'll also be very clear about which industries or even niche industries you are strong in. And in other words, the behavior that we see from the companies that are already successful is that they are not opportunistic. Now, of course, for all of us, especially in a startup situation, it's often a bit of luck that helps to drive us in a certain direction. So, of course, there is always that thing, that blend of getting lucky, and maybe in the early stages there is some of that opportunism. However, for us to succeed, we need to be extremely focused. And going back to this picture on the right-hand side of our business customer has a lot of choice. And especially if we're in a startup environment, we're competing with a number of others to earn the right to serve a customer. And we need to be pretty good for that customer to choose us, or very good for that customer to choose us. And therefore, we need to be very, very focused and make it very clear that we understand that customer extremely well. The third thing that you see is that these businesses, and when you're successful, you'll have an understanding and expectations around the economics of your business. And the reason why I say this is, as we discussed regarding the economics of a consumption business, the value or the goal, the return on investment from any recurring revenue business comes over time. So we make the investment up front for the long-term return on investment, or lifetime value. Customer lifetime value expresses our profitability on a per customer basis. So the long-term profitability is what drives our success. And that also means that we are making decisions now, if we're early in our development, for long-term payback. We therefore need to set expectations that the payback is not going to come this year. It may not come next year. It's probably going to start coming the third year, for example, depending on which area, what kind of business we're actually in. And the consequences of this flow then through all the other elements, all the other habits here, including driving behavior for us in terms of keeping customers for life, or for a long time, customers for life. The fourth habit that we see is around the value proposition. Now, businesses who have a clear understanding of where they want to get to, have a clear focus and understand their business customer, what they develop is a compelling value proposition which is customer centric, so absolutely stands in the shoes of the customer and is all about the business value that the value proposition, the organization can deliver. So the impact that, or outcome that the business customer will receive from engaging with this value proposition. The fifth one that you see is around the organization. So all of this is aligned. The organization is driven by the entrepreneur. The organization focuses on the domain, the industry, the niche, and behaves in a very focused manner. The behavior of the organization is all about the long-term, keeping customers for life, maximizing value for both your customer and for yourselves over the customer lifetime. And that value is based around delivering a compelling value proposition and achieving the business outcomes for the customer. Now, if you're in that situation where you're coming from an existing business model, which perhaps has been around for some time, perhaps fairly traditional, for example, in our industry, perhaps this is an on-premise based business model or a traditional consulting services model, then I'm guessing that you're driven on an annual basis by your EBIT, your profit performance, and your growth in revenue and profit as a business. And of course, that kind of measure, which drives behavior for this year, contradicts the long-term nature of the payback, the expectations of when you get payback in this kind of business. And so it's important for the new business team for their behavior and for their key metrics to be driven by this whole concept of customer lifetime value, driving that long-term behaviors. I mean, the other things that are relevant here is that, based purely on human nature, people who have grown up being successful in this environment are probably not going to be successful in the new environment, because the way that we engage customers, the way we go to market, the way that we sell, and in fact the way that we deliver is different from the way that we used to do these things in this original business. And purely based on human nature, it's very difficult for us humans to change. It takes us time. So the chances are that at the very beginning, whilst you may bring some key skills and key leadership, taking advantage of people who have that ability to change and to lead this in this new environment, the rest of the resources that you use are probably new resources because you're embedding a different way of working. This also gives you the opportunity to create different kind of structures, different kind of cost models, which again help us to manage our cash flow and our risk as a business over here. So these two organizations are definitely not the same. They don't behave the same. They have different structures, different processes, and probably different people, especially in the early days, until such time as we're in a position to bring people over from the old world into the new world. And the final thing covering all of this is, in terms of the habits, is an openness to learn and adopt best practices and to continuously innovate these best practices, both for your own business and for your customers. Not that long ago, I remember very proudly talking to an audience about best practices and how we were sharing best practices, and the response I got from them was, of course, if you're telling us about best practices now, that means they're already old practices. And of course, that person was absolutely right. It's actually about the openness to innovate and to build that incremental value both for yourself and for your customers. I'd love to get your feedback on this, so please do drop me a note on my on LinkedIn or Twitter. Thank you very much.